From the very start, the situation is framed as something much larger than a single courtroom decision. What initially looked like a case focused on one powerful figure slowly begins to feel like a pressure test on an entire system. Even after the judge handed down a sentence and headlines tried to signal closure, the reaction outside the courtroom told a different story. Instead of relief, there was discomfort. People weren't asking whether justice had been served. They were asking who else had quietly benefited from the same silence that allowed everything to continue for so long. The focus shifts toward how influence works behind closed doors, how certain figures are insulated by culture, money, and fear, and how the absence of accountability often masquerades as professionalism. When no one speaks, the behavior doesn't disappear, it becomes normalized. This is where the conversation pivots, suggesting that the real issue isn't just individual actions, but the environment that made those actions possible without consequence for years. Attention then turns to Meek Mill, whose name surfaces almost immediately once public scrutiny expands beyond Diddy himself. Their relationship was never subtle. For years, Meek appeared openly aligned with Diddy, sharing stages, celebrations, and moments that symbolized access to elite circles. At the time, no one questioned it, but once accusations and legal pressure began mounting, Meek's tone shifted sharply. Public statements grew defensive, emotional, and urgent. He positioned himself as a target rather than a participant, emphasizing his influence and suggesting that forces wanted him silenced. While some viewed this as standing strong, others felt the response came too fast and too loud. The issue wasn't denial, it was contradiction. At one point, Meek implied he had no connection to questionable behavior at all. Later, he acknowledged being present around the chaos while insisting he never crossed any lines. Those two positions created confusion, and confusion quickly turned into doubt. Once credibility wavers, even innocent explanations start to feel unstable. The focus then moves to the Vegas birthday party that refuses to fade from public memory. That night became a symbol of excess, not because of one specific incident, but because of the environment it represented. Details from the party circulated online for years, retold and reshaped until they became inseparable from Meek's name. Things escalated when audio clips surfaced, immediately dismissed as fake, AI-generated or planted. But quiet voices from within the industry suggested otherwise, claiming the recordings came from someone inside the room rather than an outsider. That contradiction mattered. Attempts to shut the rumors down only seemed to fuel them further. Offering money for investigations, then going silent, created more questions than answers. Old videos resurfaced, including moments where language exchanged between Diddy and Meek felt uncomfortable to viewers revisiting them through a new lens. None of this amounted to legal proof, but public opinion doesn't rely on verdicts alone. It relies on consistency, and that consistency was missing. As speculation grows, one rumor changes everything: the possibility that Diddy could cooperate. Whether true or not, the idea alone sends ripples through the industry. Cooperation doesn't need confirmation to create panic, it only needs to feel plausible. Suddenly, proximity becomes dangerous. Anyone who once stood close enough to be seen now feels exposed. Names resurface not because of new evidence, but because people begin replaying old footage, interviews, and alliances with a sharper eye. Meek's earlier attempts to distance himself now appear strategic rather than emotional. Silence becomes calculated. Loyalty becomes selective. History shows that when powerful figures fall, they rarely fall alone, and that belief alone is enough to make people uneasy. The fear isn't about guilt, it's about what might be said if pressure increases. And once that thought enters the conversation, it reshapes everything. Then comes the name that shocks the timeline: Oprah Winfrey. Her inclusion isn't based on accusations, but on proximity to other powerful figures whose downfalls later exposed long-hidden abuse. Years ago, Oprah maintained a public relationship with Harvey Weinstein, promoting his projects and appearing alongside him while rumors quietly circulated. Survivors later said they wished someone with her influence had spoken up sooner. The conversation then revisits the South Africa Girls' School, a project meant to represent empowerment that became clouded by disturbing allegations involving staff members. Oprah addressed the situation publicly, removed those involved, and expressed deep pain, but critics felt the response didn't fully address systemic failure. Now, these moments are being revisited not as isolated incidents, but as examples of how power often escapes lasting scrutiny. Industry insiders whisper that her influence is so vast that few dare challenge her openly, reinforcing the idea that silence isn't accidental, it's structural. Stevie J's role draws attention next, largely because of his refusal to step back. Unlike others who distanced themselves, he stood firmly beside Diddy, defending him publicly and repeatedly. Their connection runs deep, built through years of shared history at Bad Boy Records. Lawsuits later mentioned Stevie by name, alleging involvement in facilitating certain environments, though nothing was legally proven. Still, questions linger. Loyalty in moments like this can look admirable or suspicious depending on context. Standing 10 toes down while others retreat makes people wonder whether that loyalty comes from belief, fear, or shared history that can't be erased. Defending a friend is one thing. Refusing to acknowledge controversy altogether is another. And as public scrutiny intensifies, unwavering support begins to feel less like principle and more like survival. The conversation then shifts outside hip-hop to Ashton Kutcher, whose presence surprises many. Old footage resurfaces, showing him attending Diddy's parties, relaxed and engaged in spaces now viewed differently. During a later interview, when asked about those parties, he hesitated, admitted there were stories he couldn't share, and visibly struggled to move past the question. That pause became a moment people replayed repeatedly. It gained new weight when combined with Ashton's controversial letters supporting Danny Masterson, who was later convicted. That decision led to Ashton stepping away from the nonprofit he co-founded and raised questions about his judgment and the circles he trusted. No allegations tie him directly to Diddy's situation, but optics matter. When silence, hesitation, and past controversies overlap, public perception begins to shift in ways that are difficult to reverse. Finally, attention lands on Naomi Campbell, whose name has long surfaced in conversations involving elite power, private islands, and exclusive gatherings. Her connections to both Diddy and Jeffrey Epstein have fueled years of speculation. While she has denied knowledge of Epstein's crimes, critics remain skeptical due to her consistent proximity to influential figures later exposed for abuse. Online rumors accuse her of facilitating access to young models under the promise of opportunity, claims with no legal backing but persistent traction. Her career longevity, despite repeated controversies, only deepens suspicion for some observers. Naomi's past relationship with Diddy, followed by the quiet removal of him from her public image after scandals emerged, adds to the speculation. In the end, the issue isn't proof, it's pattern recognition. When the same names appear across multiple scandals, people start questioning whether coincidence is enough.
Don't forget to support the channel by liking the video and subscribing. See you soon!